Our front of house makeover is screaming along, but there's a lot of greenery that needs to fill the garden. And Tara's got her hands full with a carport that's really letting the side down.
You see carports like this everywhere in the burbs, and for good reason. They're cheap to put up, let's face it, they work. And trust me, on a day like today, the shelter is such a welcome relief from that harsh sun. The only problem is they're not very pretty, so I want to dress up the end with a very simple screen. Now, what I've chosen to work with is Merbau. It's a red kind of grain timber. It'll contrast beautifully against the monument colour of the house. Now, the first thing I've done is had each of these slats cut to length. Now, I'm pre-drilling at both ends. This is a standard size carport. Once the family car's in here, trust me, there's not a lot of room to move. So I'm not putting a side screen in. Carmelina's got young kids, and you know what's going to happen. At some stage, those doors are going to swing open and crash into them. So I'm dressing up the end instead. It's going to create a really nice flow and have the added benefit of not seeing down the ugly side of the house when the gate's open. I'm using screening timber. It's slightly narrower than decking timber. It's also slightly cheaper, which is a bonus. And the great thing about this is it's dressed all the way around. It doesn't have these ugly ridges on the back. So if that's to the back of the screen, obviously you're going to see it, and I don't want that ugly side to be shown. So this one looks good front and back. What I am using this for, however, is the side plates, and I'm fixing those ridges to the side of the carport. That way you won't see them. Now, with that fixing plate in place, I can add all of my slats. Now, working with what I know, wallpaper, well, you know, if you don't hang the first piece straight, the whole lot's going to go pear-shaped. Well, in this case, when you're doing a screen, if the first one is not level, the rest will go out of whack. And the other good thing about raising it slightly, it means that you can hose underneath. It just makes it a little bit easier to keep neat and tidy.
For the plants, we've gone with sun-loving everywhere because this front yard doesn't have much shade. Now, if you look at the plants, you'll see a lot of white. Even the tips of these euphorbias are white, and that's just to contrast, like the chair, the front of the house. So the reason why the blinds look so good is because the house is so dark. And you might notice a few copper things, like the underside of the leaf, the stems of the front hedge, and even these little copper spoon succulents that are in the pot, all tying in with the Merbau. So if you've got a colour scheme for the house, you can match your garden to it. Probably one of the trickiest things to get your head around is what's the garden going to look like in a year or two. You plant things that you bought in the nursery, and if you do it to scale, you think, OK, these are little and they're little and they're little, so which one goes at the front and which one goes at the back? Well, you need to read your tags and find out how big things get. Now, this little lavender, it's called Pacific Blue. I like it because the flower stem's done it a long time, but the plant itself will be close to the ground, so it's good at the front. The Indian hawthorn, well, I reckon it'll make a cracking little ball at about 1 metre tall. The salvia will stay at about 60 to 70 centimetres, and then it'll go up to the crepe myrtle. So you've got scale here towards the house. And the difference between getting it right and wrong is you look at a garden a year or two later, and it looks like it'll need replanting if you've got it wrong.
OK, so now that the slats are fixed off on both sides, come and have a look in the middle here and see what's going on. Look at all of this banana bendy action. It's pretty normal, but the way to rectify it is to grab yourself a stud and work from behind. So this is nice and strong. It goes in the centre. You need to level it up. And then again, starting at that bottom board, just fix that one in place. Pop in a packer, and then with the next board, you can wiggle it around to make sure it's level and fix that in place. Then keep going all the way up to the top, and your screen will be perfectly straight. Finish it off with a couple of coats of clear stain to seal the deal. So nice. I love this.
Getting there, isn't it?
Pretty gardens. I like softness. This is great. You've got lavender here. And my favourites, I love hydrangeas. They're my favourites.
Hydrangea's good. I'm more into the construction, obviously. I like the fact that the border is grey, ties in with the house. The black pots, the grey pots, gives us height because this is a very flat deck.
It is.
So it gets us up. The magnolias, they'll be fine because that's more like a raised garden bed than a pot they're that big. And then the white chair really pops.
You would want to come and sit here.
Yeah, well, it's the front yard, and I reckon the more inviting the front yard,
yep,
the more you're going to talk to your neighbours.
Beautiful. And do you know what I think the stroke of genius is? The round. I would never have thought of that. That is brilliant. Soft. It just cuts off all of those hard angles.
Sorry, I lost it when you called me a genius. Coming up, our final touches.
And we get to see Carmelina's first impression of her new and improved front of house.
Oh, my goodness.